I like the music too.
Okay, now we are live. We are waving. Kim, look up and wave at the camera. Yes, there we are. There we are. Oh, good grief. That was crazy.
So much
That
stuff going
that
on.
was crazy. Yes, but my Facebook and YouTube family, we're excited to be here. Technical glitches happen. They've happened before, Rebecca. We've had to work our way through some tech stuff because we're not techies. So we've had to work our way through it, but we are back and we've got a wonderful guest. I'm going to cut to the chase. We got a wonderful guest in here today, and we're going to talk about some things, ladies and gentlemen, that are affecting you or that will affect you or somebody you know that you may not even know is happening. And that is Senate Bill 1882. And, I'm not going to say that it always intentionally, um, the intention to trick the public or to not disclose things to the public or to not explain things to the public. Kim, before I mentioned Senate Bill 1882 to you, had you heard of it or did you know what it meant?
I did not. Not until you sent me something, texted me something telling me about it.
Yes, Rebecca, you knew it because you read about that kind of stuff all the time. I knew it because I'm a teacher and we know about that stuff and we hear about that stuff. But our guest in here today, Ruth Kravitz, she's an expert on it and she knows it like the back of her hand. And she's going to be able to give us a little bit more insight as to what it actually could mean if it is um implemented the way that we think it may be. So, Ruth Kravitz,
Hello.
introduce yourself. We're finally live, and we got somebody live finally, and we are the way that we should be. But can you tell us a little bit about your background? You're a former educator.
I am.
And you're an advocate.
I am.
And you love public education and what it stands for.
I do.
And you believe that it should be excellent, and it can be.
It can be excellent.
Yes.
We want, how we should start? We should start by talking a little bit about freedom dreaming, because we're here opposing Senate Bill 1882.
Yes.
And the negative implications, and opposing how Miles deprives children of actual books, and we're opposing how Miles gets rid of 8,000 teachers forcefully over the last 2 years.
I'm also one of wow.
And because we're also we're not just opposing bad policies,
Right.
we're freedom dreaming for good policies.
Yes.
And so if good policies are places, schools where students' needs are met,
Right.
where the conditions in which children live are so supported,
Right.
that the manner in which they learn is better. And the way of saying that is if a kid needs is sleeping 3 to a mattress, they don't need more test prep, they need more mattresses.
Yeah.
If
Right.
kids don't have libraries in their neighborhood, if they don't have electricity in their home,
Right.
it impacts things. So this is whether parents say, I don't have people say, I don't have kids in the school system. Does it matter to me? It matters to all of us.
It sure does.
Every single kid in every single community in this country, in this world, should be supported and loved. And when
Absolutely.
that happens, they're ready for school and learning. And just
That's
like
right.
students need to be supported, teachers need to be supported, fairly compensated with their input value. And we're not experiencing that in HISD
Yes.
right now. And we need to have, like you were talking about with your learning, rich, meaningful education for kids that's developmentally appropriate, where kids are supported and nurtured. And that happens in schools where teachers can build meaningful relationships with students. And that we
Yeah.
fully fund our schools. And none of that is happening right now.
And you know what? Here's the thing with Senate Bill 1882.
One minute, Crystal,
Yeah.
before we get there,
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
we go there, Ruth, because I've always wanted to ask you this question, but I always forget. And I'm just excited to have her on the show because she's one of my mentors. Seriously.
Yes.
Ruth, when the takeover started, right? Before we get into the bills, when the takeover started, what were your thoughts? Like, did you, because you had some people that said, well, let's give Miles the benefit of the doubt. You had some
I was
people,
one, I'm gonna admit it, I said I was
You
one,
know,
because I like to see that glass is half full.
you know, you have people to say, well, he wouldn't touch our schools. You know what schools specifically I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So when the
Well,
take,
that's what was told.
right.
That's what was, that's the bill of goods we were sold.
Well, he hadn't really said anything yet.
Okay.
But when the takeover started, what were your thoughts and what was your take on it?
That's a short question with a long answer, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna quote Domingo Morel. If this was the very first takeover that ever happened, if this was the first turnaround program, then we wouldn't have a more wait and see attitude.
Yeah.
All the research shows that takeovers around the country are not designed to help improve the conditions in which children learn, but to diminish the political power of people in with majority Black and brown political participation.
Yeah.
In addition, when you think about the Texas Miracle, the so-called Texas Miracle, or the unrelenting focus on high stakes testing,
Right.
or the turnaround programs that happened before this takeover, whether it's Apollo or what happened in Philadelphia or New Orleans or Tennessee Achievement School District or Detroit, what you see happening over and over again is a lot is promised and much less is delivered. And kids are less well off after these turnarounds than before. In Houston, there were no
Yeah.
sustained academic gains
Right.
in mathematics, and the
Yes.
gains that they had were very short term. There were no gains whatsoever in English, and you lost
What about reading, Ruth?
reading and English,
Wow.
and you lost schools that did well, schools that were functioning, and they became schools that were functioning less well. I'm not saying that we don't have a long way to go. We live in an unfair, separate, and unequal system
They're challenges.
where
Yes.
affluent
Absolutely.
communities can raise $400,000 at
Yes.
luncheon,
Yes.
and other communities can raise $800 at spaghetti dinner.
Yes.
Where you're at a school where people flock to work there, and other schools have to beg people to work
Right.
there.
That's
We need
right.
to create systems that are more fair and equitable, and this takeover started as one that created separation
Division.
and discord.
It did.
You get to keep your schools, and you don't get to keep your schools.
Right.
From one side of the city to another. And before we go on,
Yeah.
the only good thing that Miles has done in the city is he's an equal opportunity oppressor. He
Yes.
has done harmful things to everybody's community.
Right.
So that some people say, where are the people in, say, North Forest? Why aren't they screaming as loudly as the people
Right.
in other communities?
Yes.
Because this is same SHT, different day.
Yeah.
When you've had 9 principals in 10 years, like at Blackshare
Yeah.
Elementary School,
Yeah.
between 2006 and 2012 or 13,
Mhm.
you know what turnarounds look like. It creates
Exactly.
just instability, it harms kids,
Distrust
distrust, it
from the
removes
community. Absolutely.
it makes the situation in which children live and learn worse. And so the only good thing about this man is that he's helped everybody realize that you can do really bad things to children.
Well, I'll give you credit.
Let me ask one thing first, Rebecca. Now, when you, let's think
But we're
about
gonna go
this.
way off track.
But that's okay. Consider this, and I don't know if a lot of people even, really put this into perspective, but when he came in and he decided to just steamroll over everything, we talked about this, you and I talked about this the other night on the phone. I was one of those ones who was willing to give the benefit of the doubt, okay? Because I like to live that way. I like to give the benefit of the doubt. But I immediately felt like I had been absolutely blindsided because of the way that things changed, where teachers did not have a choice in whether or not they wanted to stay or wanted to be a part of this or wanted to go. He said, well, yes, you can go. But when you say, yes, you can go, and it's 3 days before it's the 45-day time that we can break our contract, that's putting someone in a position that they really don't have a choice. Because you know, and that, and
And parents had no choice. because
exactly,
They went home on June first.
yeah,
And they came back 2 weeks later and found out 22 of their 28 teachers
we're
were
gone,
gone.
right, right.
They found out that the, the, the pilot, the garden program that they had was gone.
Right.
That the PTA was disappeared,
All of the electives,
gone.
right,
And that what was promised to them was never delivered.
that's
And we-
right.
and we should deliver what we promised.
That's
We'll do
right.
The very best job we can. And maybe this is a precursor to a preamble to our discussion of Senate Bill 1882. Because we have, like we said earlier, what Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Miles has been doing that over and over again since the takeover and turnaround takeovers around the country.
And it's a
have
pattern.
demonstrated it
That's right.
over and over again.
Now, I will give him credit for one more thing. I know everybody in HISD world is shocked. You, Rebecca? I'll give him credit for one more thing. I will give him credit for this. He has kept ICE off these campuses. I remember at a board meeting, well, I didn't go to the board meeting this particular time. I heard it on the Zoom, where he said that ICE was not coming on any campuses in HISD. So
Well, he can be superseded, but you know,
I give him credit for that, at least keeping ICE off the campuses for that reason. I don't know if that was out of the kindness of
well,
his heart.
well, out of all the stuff that's been happening, that's a pretty low threshold to meet. I mean, you know, out of everything else, well, I won't allow our children to be dragged from their classrooms.
For him
Well,
to step up.
thank goodness, you know, that's you know, you're doing your job. Yay. Well, Kim, okay, well, Ruth, let me ask you this. So tell me the genesis of CVPE. Were you guys so fed up? Was it born? Yes, and Ruth is gonna tell us exactly what those acronyms stand for. But was it born after the takeover? Was it something that was happening prior to the takeover and just really ramped up after the takeover? Or what, you know, it's always important for the community to have a voice in education. However, when we're comfortable, we don't exercise that voice as much. So when we became uncomfortable after the takeover, is that when you really saw people ready to get out and make their voices heard?
It's a good question. There's been bad things happening in public education for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
We do not fully fund our schools. Going back, it is a much simpler plan than everybody makes it out to be.
Yeah.
Let's not starve our schools of funding, then blame our schools, then close our schools.
Right.
Then let's not use test scores to fire teachers, shame children, and
Yes,
close schools.
yes.
In the state of Texas, we've had property tax caps multiple times, and now we have a governor who's saying, why even spend any money on public education? Let's abolish property taxes once and for all. So in a state like this, the takeover is not the first bad thing that's
Right,
happened.
right, that's right.
CVPE is Community Voices for Public Education.
Correct.
It was formed when teachers and parents were concerned across Houston from every community, from every socioeconomic group, from Lee High School to Wheatley High School
Yes.
to Southwest Houston. People were upset and concerned about the previous takeover of
Okay.
Apollo 20.
Right, right,
So-
yes, yes.
So that's when it's almost the same thing. Principals were replaced with
Right.
top-down hierarchical principals.
Yes.
Teachers left schools. So much so that it wasn't just a 40% turnover rate; it was a 60% turnover rate of teachers.
Give us a time
Year
time
over year.
frame there. Apollo 20 was about,
Miles, Terry Greer came to Houston in 2009.
yes.
And he left in 2015, that's
Right.
8 years. And people have said that it would take a generation to undo the damage that he caused. And I thought there could be nobody worse for children
Wow.
than Terry Greer,
Yeah,
but I was
right.
proved wrong. So, as organizing, as organizers and as parents and as students, we gathered together It's Community Voices for Public Education believes in the power and the promise of public education and believes that when you assemble parents, teachers, and students from across Houston, people from Black neighborhoods and brown neighborhoods and white neighborhoods and rich neighborhoods
Right.
and poor neighborhoods, talking about how we can create institutions where students learn powerfully,
Yes.
where they are supported, where they grow into people who can achieve their dreams.
Right.
How do we make this happen? And why is
Across the board.
and why was Apollo 20 the precursor to this takeover? Why was that the model used when it wasn't, as we said,
Right.
providing any sustained gains? So CV, Community Voices for Public Education, is really just a group of parents, students, and teachers from across Houston who feel that public schooling is the cornerstone of a thriving democracy. And we're talking
Yeah.
13 years ago we formed. And I think all of us, when bad things happen, think someone else is going to save us.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yep.
Waiting for Superman.
The Calvin,
Yeah.
yes, they're waiting for the Calvin
And
to come in.
Another thing good about this difficult time that we're living in on the national stage,
Yeah.
the state stage, and locally with this takeover is that it's forcing us to be the leaders that we have been looking for.
Right.
Yes.
So if there's anything that
Yes.
comes from this evening, it's if you don't like this takeover, speak at the next school board meeting.
Right.
It's not for naught. The media is watching and listening. Write letters to the editor. Every second Thursday of the month, there's a whole bunch of parents who said, let's start shining a light on the value and meaning of the aspirations of children by wearing neon every
Yes.
second Thursday and showing up at the board meeting in neon saying kids deserve more. And when we have and schedule a one-day boycott, parents can keep their kids home.
Yes.
City council
Tell us
members,
about it.
city council members can boycott
Right.
their city council meeting. And if they don't boycott it, they can use it as a day to speak out powerfully for our kids.
Yes.
You know, we're all educators and the sister of an educator.
Yes, sister of an educator.
But sometimes people who are oppositional to what we're talking about
Yes.
say, these are adult voices. And what I'm saying is at every juncture, every room that I'm in with
Yes.
parents and teachers everywhere, everyone is saying, I want what's good for kids.
Yeah.
And the only reason why teachers are afraid is because Miles has created a situation where is if you even share any dissent, he'll threaten to fire you. And in many
Absolutely.
cases has.
Yes.
So teachers, when we have a call for a one-day boycott, you can call in sick because you'll be supported by parents and business owners could close on this
Yes.
one-day boycott.
And this
And-
is what I've been telling teachers, and y'all know, and you have even told me, okay, Rebecca, we're gonna have to talk diplomatically. But Ruth, the problem is I'm tired,
But we
right?
can't point our finger at people who are afraid. We have to help people
That's true.
who are afraid feel less alone. And no one wants to be
And less afraid.
the pioneer,
Yes.
the first
Yes.
person to do something.
Yes.
So when I've talked to people, I said, don't be the lone wolf.
Yeah.
Get 40% of the teachers at your school or 40% of the parents at your school to be on one page together. I mean, but how do you get people say, I'll participate in a sick out if everybody else is? But who's the first person to do it? So,
But Ruth, okay.
but I agree with you. You
Yeah.
have to tell people, stop talking around the water cooler about what's wrong. And start talking in the bigger spaces. And that's what I hear you saying.
And Rebecca says that all the time. Rebecca says that all the time. She says, if we can get these teachers to band together and do things and move as one, it would have so much power.
And see, here's what I've been explaining to them from day one, and y'all know, I've been explaining this from day one. I said at the end of the day, and I've mentioned you several times, Ruth, and you know this, I said, you know, parents have done it, they're getting listened to, but it's, you know, I said, students have organized walkouts, business leaders have divested,
Yeah.
pretty much most of the business leaders have divested from HISD. I told them, I said, now it's your time. When y'all move, everything in Houston will shake.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what I'm trying to get them to understand.
So I would say, let's use the language of us, get us to understand. To always say, how do we do more of these things?
Yeah.
there were two teacher sit-outs where teachers put their careers on the line.
Yeah.
There are
I was a part
teachers,
of both of them.
yes,
Yeah.
there are teachers who speak at board meetings still now and haven't been fired. The best defense against people who are gonna take you down is to do what you know is ethically and morally right. Like we were talking before, the teacher code of ethics says, you are legally obligated to not do things that cause harm to the physical and mental health of students.
Right.
So if Miles says you cannot send your children to the bathroom and third graders are peeing on themselves or afraid to take water bottles to school,
Yeah.
that's not good. When children go to school, whether they're 5 or 15, they're minors. They need to be supported and
Right.
loved.
Right.
And if they're told at 8 o'clock school starts and a kinder teacher must start by 8:02, regardless of situations
In the
that
classroom,
happen
yeah.
in the classroom,
Wow.
and that when kids don't understand the material, what's that slide they have?
The slide deck that you're not to answer any of the kids' questions.
That you have
Response
to-
cards.
No, that you have to pick up the pace.
Yeah.
When you pick up the pace, so you're moving so fast
Yeah.
that your students don't have time to absorb the learning, and that
Or
when
answer
Miles-
questions.
or
Or
answer
answer
questions.
questions.
And then you know the new one that's come out. I know the teachers have told you the email that he sent out that the principals kind of dissected because he didn't want to get in trouble. Not to give accommodations and IEPs. Don't give the children their accommodations. Michelle got
He used that he said it in a different way.
Yeah, but basically what it was not to give children their accommodations on their IEPs. For those of you who don't know what an IEP is, it's an individual education plan for students who are in 504 or special education.
Right.
And they have these plans to adjust, not to change, but to adjust their learning to where they're understanding, and it's federally mandated. Well, the superintendent told them if it interferes with the pacing and timing of instruction, don't give it to them.
Okay.
Would that be at that point, would that be something
That's a
that
federal
is-
law. That's
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you violate a federal law,
Yeah.
at that point, what is can HSD via Mike Miles be punished for telling someone to
reprimanded, yes.
reprimanded or something? If he actually says violate.
Well, Kim, here's the
The
thing.
law.
Here's the thing. Who does he answer to?
Well, people have to, one, document what happens.
Yes.
Okay.
People have to, in whatever fashion, communicate that.
Right.
So, and then it can be used against a school district in a sense
Yeah.
where they say, the exit criteria states that you can't have so many special ed complaints and investigations, and if you have too many, then that's not satisfying the special ed exit criteria. But at the end of the day, it's not HISD that runs itself, it's the Texas Education Agency that runs
Okay.
itself. Because you have 9 appointed board of managers, and when 4 of those 9 appointed board of managers disagreed with Mike Miles, didn't want to extend his contract, they were concerned about the
Yes.
budget and voted against it, and very,
Yes.
very minimally pushed back against this takeover.
Right.
They were replaced
That's right.
by TEA
That's
Mike
right.
Brown. So TEA runs the school district and
That's
should
right.
be held responsible for things that are happening.
That's right.
If adults don't share the violations of federal law, the
Yeah.
violations of state law that are happening, by documenting what
Right.
is happening, then you can't,
Record what is being said.
you can't file a lawsuit on feelings.
That's right.
You can file a lawsuit on facts.
That's
Yes.
right.
That's why when principals are forced out and they have access to resources, they need to save and document everything. And teachers can say, if every teacher in HISD said, I will teach according to the needs of my students.
Right.
To promote what we know is good and right.
Right.
And if every parent backed them up by when they could, showing up on the campus as many days as they can, saying, I'm here to deliver lunch for my child. I'm here to volunteer in my
But you know,
child's
they're not,
and when they don't let parents in,
you know, that's where I was
They
going.
were escorted off campus.
you
That's right.
come back the next day with your mother
Mhm.
and your grandmother and your great grandmother.
Yes,
You bring a reporter with you.
that's right.
I'm
There you go.
here to deliver lunch for my child.
Mhm.
Yes.
I am, not every parent can do that.
Right.
People have people have jobs.
Responsibilities, that's right.
Right.
But there are all sorts of creative ways to say, this schoolhouse belongs to us.
That's right.
These children we send into
Are
the
ours,
schoolhouse
that's
every
right.
day, we don't send them in to be, we send them in to learn.
That's
Parents
right.
send their very best children to the schools.
That's right.
And expect something beautiful to happen.
That's right.
The teachers and parents, we all need to be collaborating together.
Yeah.
And the difficulty is he's putting hurdles in the path.
Right, because there
Yeah.
was a parent that I know that called me and said, "Can you please explain to me why my child has been misbehaving?" And I said, "That's fine. I will take off work and I will follow them from class to class and see what the issue is." Why was I told that I couldn't do that?
Mhm.
Now I'm a
You used to be able to do that.
no, that's what she said. She said, "I'm a taxpayer.
Yeah,
My child is acting up. I'm getting reports from teachers."
right.
But the school administration told this particular parent that she was not allowed to follow her son.
So I would say in response, although I don't have the state statute handy,
Yeah,
but it exists, and I will provide it to you so you can bring it up next
Right.
week. There's a state law that says a parent can observe their child during their learning experience. They can't disrupt learning,
No.
and there are some, but from allowing a parent to observe their child and how they're learning, to allowing no one even in the building to help teachers make copies, to do read alouds.
Yeah.
These are problems.
Yeah.
Literacy Now, a wonderful nonprofit
Right.
that pairs adults with third graders who don't
I
read.
know about
well.
That's right. That's right.
He booted them in August of '23. Why would you do that?
And that was a volunteer organization.
Yes.
So let me ask
Wow.
you this, are there no
We're
longer
going
like,
far away from where we started.
Okay, I'm sorry, coming back.
these are things people need to know are going on?
Are
Are there no longer like class parents or, class
No,
moms, no
it-
room mothers,
it
no
dep-
room
no,
mothers
It
or something?
depends on the school.
Wow.
Okay.
So,
As long as it's not NES.
so some schools, I don't want to, I think people are coming together and recognizing that they had certain privileges in some communities that
Right.
other communities don't have. So I don't want to point my finger.
Right.
But there are some schools that still have high levels of autonomy. First of all, every school should have high levels of autonomy
Absolutely.
with some oversight.
That's right.
Not everybody is great at their craft. and
That's
job,
right.
and
That's
why
right.
There are bosses.
And you need oversight.
bosses
That's
say,
right.
Make sure you're spending the money on the kids.
Yes.
Right.
That's why you have an elected school board, who
Yes.
says to the school district, make sure that the taxpayer dollars are spent on Houston public school
That's
children,
right.
not on Miles's pet projects.
In Colorado, yeah.
Or even in Houston, not
Yeah.
on a $2 million movie station because
Yeah.
you don't like the news station.
That's right. That's
Oh,
right.
my gosh.
So just like you shouldn't be told if your scores aren't good, you don't have autonomy to do quality work. That's the problem as we lead into Senate Bill 1882.
Right.
Every child in every community should have an opportunity to have teachers who have so much autonomy that the experiences you had when you were in a Vanguard program
Right.
are the experiences that all children have.
Yeah.
Where learning is engaging and meaningful
Yes.
and rich. And no mother wakes up in the morning and says, I want to return my child to a school full of strangers.
Yeah.
And no mother anywhere says, I hope my 6-year-old sits in front of a PowerPoint all day. And just like Lisa Falkenberg said today in her story about reading, the science of reading, the story of how kids read is settled research. And kids need access to actual stories, start to finish.
Yes.
And while it
Yes.
may be more efficient to teach kids how to read with worksheets, it isn't going to teach kids how to love learning, sustain their interest, and move forward. The people she interviewed.
And teaching with worksheets is not even, that's not even efficient.
And it's an
Teaching with a book, letting kids be able to have books. I remember when we were little, when a teacher gave you, when you got to order the books that came in.
Scholastic.
Yes, and when your books came in, you were so excited.
Right.
And your parents gave you money, $5 to
For the
buy
book
3
fair.
books, or something like that
Yeah.
back then. You kept those books for years.
Yeah.
Because school is not just about being able to read. It is about learning how to read. It is about learning how to do mathematics. It's also about learning empathy
That's
and
right.
meaning. And when you're,
Socialization.
when you read chapter 1 and chapter 2 of a book, and you're told, we're done with that book, all we needed was those first 2 chapters.
Right.
And you're only doing it in some schools and not in all schools. That is, I
Or
think
you
the word
tell
for
them-
that
Or if you're
is,
getting excerpts, just excerpts.
Yeah. Or you tell them your scores are not good, so none of your children can go on field trips.
Yeah.
If they don't maintain this level of standard, then they
That's right.
can't go on a field trip.
And the thing about it is, Rebecca, you know, sometimes these kids come from a situation whereby their parents cannot help them read. The reading that they get comes from school.
and it is not, we live on it's not a binary world where this week you do this week, this thing, and next week you do that.
Right.
Reading comes from, there is early literacy, I believe in phonics. That doesn't mean that I think that that we should just teach phonics from excerpts.
Right.
We need full books for children.
Yes.
We need the Socratic conversations that
Yes,
you and I were
absolutely.
talking about before. Kids need a rich variety of ways in which they construct meaning from what they are taught,
Right.
so that they can move forward in this life to have full, rich, meaningful lives. And
Yes.
that means that if at St. John's, there's 17 kids in a class, and
Right.
they don't have to do any high stakes testing, and they get to touch science and do
Yes.
science,
Yes.
that every child should be doing that. So when I go to events where I hear Mike Morath or Mike Miles or people on the corporate reformy world side say, we have no time to waste, I think we don't have any time to waste. We have the model. If this is what the very wealthiest kids in this city get,
Yeah.
then this is what every kid in this
That's
city
right.
should get.
Right.
And I know
That's
that at the end of the day, that's why we're doing this, because every kid needs to go home from school and say, what I learned today, mommy,
That's right.
mommy, I learned
And be
something
excited.
new,
That's
and
right.
it was meaningful.
That's right.
And it's not a Crayola curriculum, it's a rich, authentic curriculum where
That's
kids
right.
are treated like human beings, because they grow up to be leaders
That's right.
or not.
And I'm
Yeah.
seeing it because I was a history teacher. And one of the
You
things-
are a history teacher.
I am a history
Yes.
teacher. And one of the things that we had to do in history was color maps and timelines and highlight in color. And I had 5 principals come in my room when we were literally filling out a timeline and said, we thought we told you no Crayola curriculum. I said, they're not drawing, it's a timeline. We're talking about wars. They need to see it played out on the timeline because wars happen in different time eras. That's Crayola curriculum.
And the thing about it is, you know, to diminish something to Crayola curriculum where you're trying to, you may have had the text and all of the storyline for what goes with that first. And then you ask the students, go ahead and I want you all to create a gallery walk for me. And we can put that together and you can do a gallery walk from the things that you've created. They have ownership of that.
Well,
But, you know,
well,
yeah,
one thing, Ruth and I were discussing before we got on the air this time
yeah,
was that, I said that I believe that all children should be taught the way I was taught in Vanguard.
and tell me about that, because before we came back on, Kim, tell us a little bit about your background and,
Then we're gonna get into hospital.
yeah, and because that ties right into what Kim was talking about in the way that these programs are being threatened right now.
Right.
But your background in the Vanguard program, when it was brand new,
Nascent program, I was in the 2nd Vanguard class
yes,
at Lanier.
yes,
So it started in 74, I got there in 75.
right,
And then after that, I went to Jones Vanguard
Mhm.
and was there in the 2nd Vanguard class at Jones. And I was joking that I was taught by old hippies, and it's true.
yeah,
And the way they taught was very different from the way I had learned when I was a younger child in elementary school.
Okay.
So, like we were saying, the Socratic method. Okay, you have teachers who would, put forth this. Okay, you have this question right here, and then we as kids would debate it. We now in 7th and 8th grade, we were debating abortion. We were debating euthanasia. We were debating just name it, and we were debating it in 7th grade.
And no one was coming through and questioning that curriculum?
No, and we would have lively debates. It was critical thinking.
Yes.
And, not just that, just the way we were taught. We would, to this day, I cannot diagram a sentence. I
Yeah.
could not do it if I tried.
But you're an excellent writer.
But we learned how to write.
Yes.
We learned how to speak
Compose,
and compose and, and dialogue. We learned all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was terrible at math. And just like Rebecca was saying, she went to and she was going to go to a class and, observe a child. I was so bad. My teacher, who bless his heart, Mr. Stevenson, if I asked a question and he didn't understand that, and I
Yes.
didn't understand the question that he asked,
Yes.
he would come take me out of my class
Yes.
and go through and explain it to me
Wow.
until I
Because-
understood.
Wow.
Because learning
Mhm.
is an intimate act.
Mhm.
Intimate in the sense it needs to be small group.
Yes.
So when you
Yes.
Yes.
Small class.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And it was small group learning. That was big.
There's a lot to this. What we're really talking about is not everyone needs to have the exact same
Right. That's
experience
right.
you do.
That's right. That's true. Yeah.
That you can't turn all of schooling into an assembly line.
Yeah.
Where like a
Yes.
Madeline Engel's book, A Wrinkle in Time, we're all
Mhm.
bouncing the ball at
The
the
same
same time.
time. Yeah.
You can't, some people wish that they could go into one classroom and see algebra instruction
Mhm.
and walk into another classroom and essentially the teacher is finishing the sentence of the person from before.
Right.
Because there is stuff that can be done to improve learning and teaching,
Yes.
but to regiment it so that everybody is doing the exact same thing at every moment dehumanizes and demeans the child and the adult. And again, as I go back,
Yes.
if this was such a good idea, this takeover, this regimented AI error-ridden curriculum,
Right.
then why isn't it being presented at Episcopal, at Kincaid,
That's right.
and St. John's?
That's right.
So,
There you go.
so there is no magic bullet. We
Yeah.
know that when students don't do well on a standardized test, it's not improvement required where we're going to replace your principal and all your teachers and give you sanctions.
Mhm.
It's investment required.
That's right.
Where things aren't working,
That's right.
let's do things
That's right.
better, but not throw out the baby with the bathwater. And it means, because I always like to say this in every gathering, it's not that testing, it's not that I'm against testing.
Mhm.
Testing is a meaningful component of a well-rounded curriculum.
Mhm.
It's that I'm against high-stakes testing used to shame children, fire teachers, and close schools. Because if that's the only thing we value, that's what we do, and we make bad choices. And as Steve Amstutz from Wisdom at
Yeah.
Lee High School told me, that principal for many years, he says, if it helps the rating and harms the student, never do that thing.
Mhm.
And that's what's happening right now. We're doing things that help the rating and harm the student. And I don't want to go over to why he's manipulating ratings, but maybe
Well, we've had Michelle on, and Michelle has given us, she's given us the skinny on Michelle Williams. Right.
maybe we should just
Houston Education Association. She's given us the skinny. I mean, she's broken it down as to exactly how those ratings are manipulated and why we should be very, very wary of what's said
Mhm.
about that coming from the top.
Crystal, are you saying that HISD is cooking the books?
I can't tell you that because I'm not with HISD, but I can tell you some things that made me, and I told Ruth this night before last, made me want to part company with HISD. And as a teacher, I'm not saying that I wanted to be a teacher for the rest of my career, but I wanted to be with HISD for as long as I was a teacher.
Mhm. Okay.
But, other plans, So
I
the
remember talking
situation,
to you in July of 23 year. You're
yeah.
a driven, committed,
Mhm.
purposeful teacher, and you would not have ever left HIS.
Yes,
Except that circumstances meant that you had nothing else that you could do. Not saying that people
Right.
who are
Yes.
staying behind are wrong, because
exactly,
whatever choice you
exactly.
make.
That's
The
right.
kids can't. You know, use what Miles says, the kids have no time to waste. They lost time under COVID and they're losing time under Miles.
Mhm.
And he should declare victory and go home.
But that's right. But you know what? Here's the thing. When you hear the kids say, I don't want to go to school, you know, is that really the end game that they're trying to get at? Do we want people who do not crave education because a society that does not want to learn and is devoid of education is going to be a more able to be controlled society?
It's a
Is
more
that the end
compliant
game?
Society.
Is that really the end game?
For
You
some
know,
people it is.
perhaps it is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at House Bill, Senate Bill
82.
1882. And I know you have your thoughts on it. So before we get into the thoughts of it, can you explain
Explain what it
to
is.
the people what it is?
Yes.
Sure. First of all, I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to screw over children. Nobody, for
Right.
the most part.
I
For the
think-
most part.
I think the person in charge does.
I think they believe that what
They
they're
do.
doing,
That's right. They believe in what they're doing.
but
Yeah.
that doesn't make it right.
That's right.
That's
That
correct.
doesn't make it helpful, and that doesn't make it something that people shouldn't push back against. So
Yes.
in 2015, there's a law that was voted on that said if a school if a school district has one school with 5 years of bad scores, they either have to charter the school, close the school, or if they don't do that, the state must take them over.
Right.
So in 2017, the Republican-controlled state legislature sweetened the deal to charter by establishing Senate Bill 1882, which said if your school district has a school that's had many years in which 5 years in which the scores weren't good, that doesn't mean the kids weren't learning. It just means we need to invest more deeply in the schools
Mm-hmm.
and come up with programs that work strongly, that do the things we talked about earlier. And they said this, they said, look, if you charter the school, we won't count your scores for 2 years.
Mm.
That's a bribe.
Of
And we'll
course it
give
is.
you $800 to $1,500 per student. And we promise that money will increase the amount of money you get. So Senate Bill 1882 was designed for turnaround schools and innovation schools.
Exactly.
It was never designed for schools, not that I believe the ratings define the school, but
High
we use
performing, yeah.
it was never designed for schools that were A-rated.
That's right.
And we know at the end of the day, the reality is that schools don't have enough money. We starved our schools of money.
Right.
We are underfunding our schools.
Yes.
We haven't had enough. We're 44th, I think, at this point in the nation.
Was in particular, we're intentionally underfunded.
No, we're 47.
And we're 50th in terms of paying for health insurance
Yes.
for children.
Mhm.
The forgetting exactly where I was going with this.
No, but you know, this is intentional. We've got the money to make sure that these schools have what they need. But why would it be in our best interest to have these schools devoid of this?
This is where I was going with it.
Yeah.
It's hard to fund schools where we are
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
People, especially since 2013, when they cut 5.5 billion to schools and then returned some of the money later, but the schools had already cut so many programs, cutting
Yeah.
library services and
Yes.
other things. It's hard to fund our schools as they are. 80% of school funding goes towards salaries. So there's not, and in elementary schools, it's a really, really tight budget. So why are you establishing a program where you take the economies of scale, where you can spend money, where you can save money because of scale,
Right.
and you take and you establish an in-district charter? So what HISD has said, this is what an 1882 charter is, and I guess it was the brainchild of Orlando Riddick Scorecard who said, or Mike Miles, they said, this is a new money stream for me, because really that's what this is.
Yes, it
Because-
is.
Because
Oh, God.
so that, who's eligible first, I'll go into who's eligible. He said the people who are eligible are schools that have had 4 years in a row that were of A ratings and no more than 25% racial disparity in scores, which is again a sort of racist act where we constantly focus on race when we shouldn't be focusing on race. We'll
Okay.
leave that alone.
Okay.
And that ended up meaning it's HSPVA. So
Carnegie.
there's 7 schools,
Mhm.
and 4 of the schools said, we want to proceed with this. HSPVA was one, Energy's another, HICE is another, and Challenge is the 4th one that says,
Right.
we want to move forward. They could still step back in March. And then Carnegie and DeBakey and Eastwood said, we want to wait and see.
See what
And let's
happens.
put it all in perspective though.
Mhm.
Nobody got to have a rich conversation saying, what do you think about this? You have
Right.
autonomy. This
Right.
is just like when they
Mhm.
went 2 years ago, Miles said, all these schools chose to become NESs. No, they didn't. They were, it's,
That was my issue.
Talk about
No.
it's
No.
opt-in or else is what it was.
Well, for some,
Talk about
because we had an option at the school that I was at, we had a meeting over the
You,
summer.
you didn't opt in, but it was only in name only, because I know what happened at your school.
Yeah,
People were told you're gonna follow this curriculum.
That's right.
Even though we didn't opt in. So it's opt-in or
right.
else through.
Oh, I see what you're
any-
saying.
And Thurman was the same way.
Yes.
It was the same way. We weren't an NES school, but by George, we followed that same curriculum. We were at those meetings until 7
well,
o'clock at night.
y'all were NES adjacent at that
Yes,
time.
yes,
We were
we
not NES, we wasn't, my school wasn't NES, nor was it NES adjacent.
But you had to follow the same criteria.
But was it the kind of thing that a group of teachers and parents and administrators and the group had to
Okay,
go
wait,
together
wait, wait.
and make that decision?
For my campus, we did. Our principal, our acting principal at the time,
Who has since been replaced.
yeah, who since been replaced.
Mhm.
God, I miss him. Our acting principal at the time brought us all together during the summertime, and he asked us flat out, what do y'all want to do?
Mhm.
And 100% of us, well, 99% of us, which is the majority, we all said no. We didn't want NES, nor did we want NES adjacent.
Mhm.
And you ended up with that decision, but it didn't turn out that way because you ended up doing all the NES stuff. And a year later, you're in. Just so
And we
people,
didn't get to pay.
and just so that
Yeah.
people watching understand this, for the most part, people were opted in. They were
Exactly.
told,
We were opted in.
and the schools that, because I don't want to, everybody needs to find their power
Mhm.
and stand up and say, this is my line in the stand and I'm not going farther. But
Right.
principals were told, if you opt in now to be NES next year or whatever,
Yes.
we won't fire your teachers. That was a lie. We won't get rid of them. They said, if you don't opt in, we're not paying for any curriculum. And if you opt in, then you get extra money. So when people, he's said this over and over again, I promise that this will happen and then it doesn't. I promise that this will happen and then it doesn't. The newspapers report that
That's right.
principals opted in. So I want
That's
to
right.
set the record straight
That's right.
now. All these principals were talked to in secret.
Yes.
This was more of a, you should opt in. You know, as Miles has behaved over the last
Right.
couple of years,
Right.
you make a decision that is contrary to what he believes, you're probably gonna
You're
be out
gone.
the door.
That's
out the
right.
And the
door.
principals, the second time around,
Mhm.
when they were doing the opt-in for the second round, that's where we got screwed.
And so I'm just
So were they
jumping,
making an offer that, was he making an offer they couldn't refuse?
he said, there is
Like
gonna be more money
Uh-huh.
and you're gonna have more autonomy. That's the myth.
That's
And the
the myth.
reality.
But the thing
That-
is, with our school, we still said no.
But I'm jumping over, we're jumping up to 2025.
Yeah, okay.
Focus on
Yes.
where Navarro was,
Right.
you still said no, you had a strong faculty.
Yes.
People
Yes.
collaborated. And the takeaway there is regarding Senate Bill 1882 and any behaviors, teachers can stand up together and
They
help
have to.
principals be strong.
That's
And
right.
parents can stand up and become informed about Senate Bill 1882.
Yes.
So they don't run into, from the frying pan into the fire.
Right.
So
Right.
if we're jumping over to where these principals, there's 4 who say I'm probably gonna do it, and there's 3 high schools who say I might do it. The bottom line is, Miles can give that autonomy to every single school and
Right.
simply say, you don't need to be a Senate Bill 1882 partner for that autonomy.
That's right.
And if if, not that I believe in this, but if the school scores are good and Miles is saying it's all about the scores, why are you leaving these schools alone?
Yeah.
So where you have is I feel he's running out of money
Mhm.
to fund his
Absolutely.
pet project. And
Absolutely.
this is
Especially after the bond didn't pass.
and
Yeah.
this is an opportunity to find new money streams.
Absolutely.
So the reality is schools get a bump roughly $800 to $1,500
Mhm.
per student,
Okay.
but most of it gets swallowed up in bureaucracy.
Right.
And so under this 1882s, there's a 501c3 that's your partner. It can be an existing 501c3. It can be a new 501c3. It
Okay.
can be a college.
Mhm.
It could be you and me. We're smart people,
Yeah.
but I don't have experience doing this, and
That's right.
and the
Right.
money that's available
And they was
was
giving
not.
to us anyway.
Could it be a
Yeah.
parochial, I mean, could it be a church? Could it be a 501c3?
Well, that would interfere with some other existing laws.
Okay. Okay.
So
Because
the partner has no authority over hiring, over firing, over
That-
grievances,
yes.
over complaints,
Yes.
over curriculum, and over everything else.
Yes.
And so what ends up happening is just like in the largest charter in America right now, which is HISD, in
Yeah.
some respects,
Mhm.
teachers have limited due process rights. We've been talking
That's
about
right.
parents.
That's right.
Parents having limited due process rights, when you were talking about how parents can't even come into their building
Yes.
and make copies and support. I'm not saying that a parent should be able to spend every single minute in the school. You can't run a school.
Right.
No, but this particular parent wanted one day for 8 hours to follow their child to see
Right.
what the problem is.
So the reality is Miles is saying publicly
Mhm.
that if a school wants more autonomy, here's how you get it. And you'll get more money too, but the devil is in the details.
Mhm.
So there are, the partners have to staff up their 501c3. They have to handle compliance. That costs money.
Mhm.
So they have all the costs associated with running a school plus more costs. And at the end of the day, you end up with less. So before we talk about
Yes.
how it goes in practice,
Mhm.
having somebody, you're an in-district charter, you're responsible for the background checks. Right now, HISD pays for it.
Mhm.
Somebody's gonna have to fix HVAC.
Mhm.
You as a little 501c3 may or may not have somebody to do that. And so you're gonna have to pay for air conditioning services and pay for other services at a pay for service amount.
Mhm.
And in Beaumont, where they have an in-district
Right.
charter,
Mhm.
the pay for services for grounds maintenance is $150 an hour. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
So the individual grounds person, the maintenance person, he's not getting $150 an hour, but the school district is.
Well, Ruth, what about in selecting their students? If this is a charter now, and this is an independent company, can they decide who they want to admit to that school and who they don't want to admit?
Ultimately, that is how it happens, but I think we want to
Yes.
stick with the money just for a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay.
So when you have all the costs associated with this, what happens in real life is, in these 1882 partnerships, normally the school district is a desperate party.
Exactly.
And so this is sort of a weird sort of twist. Usually so at Mendez in Austin, the school district is so desperate not to be taken over
Mhm.
that there's not much written into state law regarding in-district charters. So I guess we need to go backwards and say out-of-district charters like Yale or KIPP
Mhm.
or IDEA,
Mhm.
while they have less they get all the public money, but not as many of the public obligations and requirements. There still are a whole bunch of laws. So they're subject to this one set of laws.
Right.
Lots and lots and lots of pages.
Mhm.
They have to, where there are protections, some protections for teachers and students and
Right.
parents. In-district charters are subject to essentially the thinnest of a law that's essentially what you would want. The law is so thin that it's kind of like the amount of rules I'd have if you were coming into my school to sell me paper towels.
Okay.
So if you're gonna sell me paper
Right.
towels, I don't have to worry about compliance, or
Right.
FERPA,
Yes.
or payment, or grievances. I just have to make sure, are the paper towels
Mhm.
working?
Yes.
Or are they?
And it's
not
not
Not- that's right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here you have a situation where the state doesn't have much in the way of details regarding the laws that you have to comply with. The devil is in the details of the contract. So in practice, this is how it's played out. At one school, the school was charged $150 an hour for maintenance services. That same school was charged $325 per student for nursing services. There's only one nurse, got 1,000 kids, 325 times 1,000 is 325,000. The nurse isn't getting the money.
Oh,
This-
I was thought the nurse was getting the 325.
District is getting his money.
Get the money.
And some kids never go to the nurse.
Yeah, and the nurse is
So-
making, what, $20 an hour? Something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, yeah.
So the partner often receives free or heavily subsidized services such as no utility costs or free transportation, such like we saw in Austin. So Third Futures doesn't have to pay for utilities, doesn't have to pay for transportation. The
And let's
school-
be clear, Third Futures is my
Yes.
school. Yes.
The school district, the desperate party, foots the bill. Now, in a weird twist, when Miles is Third Future in Beaumont,
Right?
he was on the other side of the fence. He had a charter in Beaumont. And the
Right.
first agreement, remember it's the paper towel agreement, there's not very many rules.
Yeah.
In the first agreement, it was renegotiated 3 times, but the first agreement, the charter, Mike Miles' Third Future Schools,
Right.
had to pay the school district, Beaumont ISD, 25% admin. So he ended up leaving Beaumont ISD because he could not do the job, keep the doors open, pay for everything that needed to be paid
Right.
for with the money
Yes.
that this Senate Bill 1882 agreement gave. So I'm saying again,
Gotcha.
the only reason that these schools are entertaining this is that there might be extra money and that there might be more autonomy. Is you get less. So
Right.
the administrative fees could swing the other way. Miles has already told teachers, told people at a teacher advisory committee that he is going to keep half the money associated with the in-district charter. So that
Wow.
means the 800, the $750 to $1,100. He's saying 800 to 1,500, but we haven't seen any charter agreements that are outside of the 750 to 1,100 range. That half that money, at least half that money is going to go to Mike Lyons. That means going to the school district into that abyss, where he can use it to shore up.
That's right. That's right.
To do,
and
okay.
To the detriment of the students
That's
in
right.
HISD.
Right.
So-
Okay.
Someone that and Miles may have learned this when he was in Beaumont. The agreement did not help him in Beaumont. It did help him in Austin. How can he use these Senate Bill 1882 partnerships to bring more money on paper to every single student at this school where this is happening, but in reality, he keeps it. So somebody very, very wise told me 3 things are going to happen. One of them is you're going to have to hand the school back mid-contract.
Right.
Happened to Third Futures in Beaumont.
Yes.
Or you're going to collapse the school mid-year, leaving children high and dry, like
Wow.
at Victory Prep and at a bunch of in-district charters in HISD. We've had this
Wow.
before. Without the oversight, because we're not even talking about oversight or impact on teacher safeguards and parent safeguards.
Right.
Or you as a partner are going to have to fundraise constantly
Wow.
and or cut services. This isn't what kids need. If when they tell us who
So
they
they
are,
are gonna cut services even more than the services that they already don't have.
you only have 3 choices. Economies of scale says when you make an entity have to take care of everything on their own, it's going to cost more.
Right.
Right.
So generally speaking, here's another example. Now, all that Mike Miles has to say is, I'm not going to do that. Don't you worry. They're making it up. But there is evidence across the state that in-district charters generally aren't sustainable. You look in San Antonio, one opens and then it closes a minute later.
Yes.
Wow.
We're
Yes.
not even talking about due process rights for parents and teachers because he has shown us in Houston
Yes.
what he feels about
But
rights
that's
for
right.
parents,
That's right.
rights
Yes.
for teachers. When people say, well, people have too much going for them, it's hard to get rid of a horrible teacher. Due process is what makes democracy great.
That's right.
When you are accused of something, it doesn't mean you are guilty of it.
That's right.
Just an accusation.
And it's important to give people their day,
That's right.
Share
Defend
their
themselves.
story.
That's right.
and it's important, like if you told me 2 years ago that I would be in the fourth largest city in the country, in the eighth largest school district in the country, in the largest school district in the state,
Right.
talking to people about the fact that parents are essentially locked out of their school,
Yes.
that they can't volunteer in school. You can go wait in that room. I would say that can't be happening.
Right.
And yet it's happening right now.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying about the Senate Bill 1882 partnerships is the devil is in the details.
Yes.
Beware of Greeks bearing gifts to the
Yes. Yes.
the
Yes.
historical record.
Yeah.
That when people tell you who they are, believe them the first time.
And that's what I'm
Right.
saying. And Mike Miles has a track record of being a liar. He has a track record of being deceptive.
And
So-
aren't the schools that he has, the charter schools and he run, have they been just stellar schools where
No,
kids are running
no.
gangbusters or?
The parents have run away.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we have, I think people
So
feel,
he's failing upwards.
yes, he is.
Yes.
Wow.
Nice language.
Okay.
And I think that people are saying, we don't have anything else to do. It can't get any worse.
Right.
Well, like at the beginning when you were cautiously optimistic about the
Right.
takeover, we now know that everything he touches.
Turns to garbage.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so what can families do? They can help principals by informing them, sharing the things that we've written in Community Voices. There's a
Yes.
blog. You go and Google Community Voices for Public Ed,
Right.
and go to the blog and look at what we wrote. You can research it yourself. And
Yes.
you can share this information quietly if you feel like it.
Right.
The principals in your schools and parents in these schools that tend to have more affluent students than other schools in
Right.
the city.
Right.
Therefore, some are judges in our city and some are lawyers in our
Yes.
city and some are doctors in our
Right.
city. They should use that power
That
and
influence,
privilege
that's right.
and influence to say, no, we don't want to do it.
That's right.
At every single one of these 7 schools,
Yes.
I beseech the strong, powerful parents to
Mhm.
use their muscle
Right.
to say, you can say no, and we want you to say no. We don't want this to happen because the roadmap is different from that which he says, and it will harm our schools and make them worse. So we have power. We don't have to just, as people say, it's not just theater. It's not
Yes.
just protesting in front of the school, which is
That's right.
important.
Yes.
It's sharing your, if you're a grandparent and you're a retired CPA,
Yeah.
bring that power to the
That's
table
right.
at the school with your principal who may be in his second year or her second year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And say, I've looked at the numbers. This is not a numbers game we can win.
That's right. That's
And-
right.
and
That's right.
And if you've run a business
Use your
before,
strengths.
Yeah.
Yes.
use your strengths to help these 7 schools realize this is the wrong path to take.
Yes.
Because it's just placating people to think that you can balkanize HISD and there won't be long-term consequences. Because we've seen what happened in New Orleans. When you
Yes.
balkanize schools, you don't make them better. It's
Absolutely.
making people comfortable with the idea that charter is okay by saying, we're not chartering, we're partnering.
No.
Every single
Yeah.
one of these schools are.
Yeah, because even
with
when
charter partner.
Yeah,
That's
that's what,
right.
even when I was at the board meeting and I was listening to the language, I'm saying to myself, screaming to myself, that sounds like a charter. That sounds like a
Yes,
charter. That
yes.
sounds like a fancy word for charter.
An unelected, appointed board that can set the rules. We're gonna go back
That's
to
right.
order.
That's right.
All the hiring and firing.
Yes.
Today, Miles is saying anybody in the Senate Bill 1882 in district charter partnership will still be employee of HISD. Tomorrow it could be something else.
That's right.
And it can
That's
be
right.
renegotiated with a different principal, a different board, and people who are good
That's
at
right.
what they do are not necessarily good at what they've never done.
That's
Right.
right.
And all
That's
the
right.
lawyers in the city who have children in these schools, I say, listen to what my friend who's an investment lawyer says.
Yes.
I do deals that have millions of dollars at
Right.
stake,
Right.
but I am not a criminal lawyer and I won't.
There you
back
go.
There.
That's right.
And I
That's
can't
right.
give you good advice there.
That's right.
So there's a
Stay in your
reason why,
lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a reason why Senate Bill 1882 and district charters have no rules associated with it. Because they're designed to help people make money hand over fist, not to help.
To be as
children.
fluid as they need to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Kim, with that in mind, I'm looking at our time. This is what I want to ask you. First of all, Ruth, we want to go deeper into that and a couple of other things that we've got some real concerns about that you all have delved very deeply into with CVPE, in the past couple of years. Can we ask you back at another time and get more insight on some of the things that you have seen happening that people may need to be aware of?
Absolutely, I can. And also I want to say, you don't have to be in Community Voices for Public Ed. You can do this in your, in whatever organization you're in. You
Right.
don't have to all agree on all things, but we all agree that what's happening in our school district isn't working. So if you're
Yes.
at Good Reason Houston and you're questioning that what you believe and what's happening in reality aren't the same, it's time
Yes.
for you to speak out.
Yes.
If you're a Greater Houston Partnership partner, it's time for you to speak
Yes.
out.
Yes.
If you're the supporters of Magdalene Budget Accountability who are
Yes.
speaking out, it's okay for different parties in different spaces to speak out forcefully, but we all have to make a case. We
Yes.
have to make it in numbers.
Right,
That's why
yes.
we do it when there's only three of us.
That's right.
1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 people
That's
who
right.
could speak at the next board meeting.
Yes.
What if we had 4 hours of testimony by families and parents about what's happening and why things aren't working?
Right.
Miles goes on for hours and hours. He's probably going, Ruth had a bully pulpit tonight, and she just went on for almost an hour. He needs to let parents, he needs to, again, if there's no Fs, of course, it's manipulated no Fs.
Right.
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 Control who tests, and you control.
Yes.
If you control who tests, who has access to the most if you control who tests in a way that deprives children of having access to the most rigorous courses for which they qualify, what you're doing may on paper look good for kids,
Right.
but in reality, it is creating a more inequitable environment.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
So people can address these concerns and all the other ones at every juncture, in every location. So I know that I've seen you speak before. It's hard to get there. You can do it on Zoom. It's not the only thing,
Yeah, I'm
But
but
it-
back speaking.
but it is the next thing we can do.
Right.
So come and say, I'm a Carnegie parent,
Right.
and I don't want this. I'm concerned about the ramifications. And I'm a PVA parent, and if you don't want to do it at a board meeting, do it with your principal. Engage them. If you're a Carnegie graduate.
That's right. The second generation, the
Even
second,
before the name was Carnegie.
that's right.
Yeah,
And
one
you
thing-
know what
one
that
thing-
was created to
One
be.
thing I want to say before we close
And,
out.
and I also want to thank all the parents and teachers and administrators who in different ways, and students and community members who in different ways are pushing back.
Good.
Because you can quietly push back.
Right.
Just what we're saying is push back in loud enough ways so that instead of you walking alone down this path, you're walking with 2 other people, and then 3 other people,
That's
and
right.
then 10 other people. Because if no one shows up for the standardized test,
That's right.
then they would have to stop administering.
That's right.
So, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell the public too, a lot of the things that the teachers are suffering. I know we put a lot of emphasis on the kids because the kids is the only thing that really moves. But let me tell you how bad teachers are suffering in HISD. Okay, I have had teachers who call me that they have literally called me from the psychiatric ward because the environments are so toxic that they are breaking down mentally and having anxiety attacks in front of your children, crying profusely, having shouting matches, crashing out. I've had a teacher call me to tell me she's lost her baby due to stress. And this was her and her husband's first child. And I'm trying not to cry as I go through a lot of this stuff, but it is bad. It is past bad. I've had teachers they have so loaded in debt that the stress has been so overwhelming that they'll say they'll figure it out. They would
Yeah.
rather be homeless please understand what I'm saying. They would rather be homeless on the street than walk one more day into these schools, into these toxic environments that they're
Wow.
dealing with.
Because they're being asked to do something that is
Unethical.
immoral,
That's right.
unethical, unconscionable, and illegal.
That's
They
right.
feel unsupported,
Yeah.
and at every juncture, each time this happens, it's almost as if Miles and the unelected, unaccountable board of managers who rubber stamp everything feel emboldened to push harder.
Right.
And
That's true.
people who love children. And I always think that everybody isn't a perfect teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
The world is propped up on the backs of the eminently average.
Right.
There are some outlier teachers on
Yes.
both ends of the
That's
spectrum,
right.
and teachers in the middle.
That's right.
Over time grow. Our
That's right.
job on this planet should be to help coach children up and coach people up.
That's right.
And when people walk into the classroom to form deep relationships with kids, to make sure that every child learns, and they're told, you may not help this child.
That's right.
That child may not get that question answered. You may not
That's
spend
right.
more than 1 minute talking to a child about a question they have. And what kind of education is that?
Yes.
And when people hear these teachers are losing their minds, they think, well, they're weak. I have a hard job.
Yeah.
I have a difficult boss. This is different.
Yeah.
This is where people are being asked to treat children in ways that no mother would want their child treated.
Right.
They're being told if they don't do it, they will be fired.
Yeah, and I was one of those kids who needed more than
A minute.
a minute to learn something, especially in math. If I
Right.
didn't have that teacher who tried to come around and say, okay, Kim, you need this little extra time for me to explain it to you in a way that you
And
can
who cared
understand.
enough to do it.
Cared enough to do it.
Right, and
Then,
then,
I mean,
there are schools now that teachers have left in the middle of the school year, and they are piling students, and the principals are not telling you all about any of this.
so it
Keep
sounds
that- keep
like
that
a
thought.
self-fulfilling prophecy to me.
Keep that
It
thought.
sounds like
Yeah.
this is meant to, if I said
Implode.
it
It's meant to implode.
it's meant to
Yeah,
implode,
it's
and
meant
it's
to
meant to
implode.
break
Yeah.
public schools,
Yeah.
and they're doing everything, piling on brick by brick, so that if there is an eventual
And
collapse.
it's coming from the top. When you see the Department of Education being systematically, taken apart, then there's no policing. Who's gonna come to Texas and say, y'all can't do that and y'all can't do
Right.
this? This is coming down from the very
To
top.
the bottom.
Absolutely.
We have a little Trump here.
Yeah.
We saw it 2 years before he gave me
Yeah.
power.
Yeah.
And it's bad for democracy. It's bad for a well-functioning society.
Yeah,
It is okay for people to say, this is serious enough for me to get involved.
that's right.
Right.
That's right.
So when you hear him say, and I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna be quiet, when you hear him say, oh, our teachers are 100% happy, he's lying.
Yeah.
If it's coming out of his mouth, he's lying. Anything that comes out of his mouth, he's lying.
Well, Rebecca, Kim, and Ruth, we just scratched the tip of the iceberg today. We really, really did. Because these are some things that people want to know, and we're just not here to bash. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to expose things that people may not be aware of.
Right.
And when people become aware of it, maybe they're more prone to want to take action in the ways that they can and the ways that they feel empowered to. But with that in mind, I want to thank everyone so much for watching today. Before we go, I want everyone to know that what I'm getting ready to say in just a second is not necessarily the opinion of our guest, but I am a candidate for state representative. And
What is it?
in 131. Yeah, but I want people to know that if you are a person who has dealt with a child, if you have dealt with a parent, if you've dealt with neighbors, you have proximity to teachers on some level. You need to support your teachers. Get out there, support your teachers, make sure that public education doesn't become a relic, a thing of the past. And 85 to 90%. I went ahead and tried to really nail this down. 85 to 90% of all people in America have at some point gone through public schools and public school teachers. They may not, yes. And you know, that's saying something about the system. Horace Mann wasn't wrong. You know, that's something that everybody should have access to. And please, please make sure that you in every way vote on things that are uplifting and that are encouraging to and that are supporting public schools and teachers. We can't take a chance on having the bottom fall out of public education.
Exactly, especially when the government today just deprofessionalized our profession. In other words, what it is, the Department of Education say they are no longer paying teacher degrees. They're no more, like, you can no longer get loans for teachers' degrees, social workers, engineers, nurses. They are no longer paying for that.
Engineers.
Yeah, engineers.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. So this is
It's not even, so we're gonna take that D out of STEM, huh?
right. Exactly.
I just want to. We have to STEM.
Yes, I want to say this. Please go to Facebook and like my Facebook page, go to YouTube and subscribe. We got a lot of stuff about teachers on there. We've had a lot of teachers on there not spilling, but telling their truth.
Yes.
And we've had a lot of good teachers who have had to take a step away from one of the largest school districts in the country because of some of the things that are happening. I believe this school district can be excellent. I know that school districts this size are always going to have their challenges, as long as we have challenges in society. But those are not challenges that are insurmountable challenges.
Yeah. Which is why we should always start with freedom dreaming. This is what
Yes.
it's for,
Yes,
and this is why we're speaking out forcefully against bad things.
absolutely. Rebecca, Kim, Ruth, like we say every week, we can do it. See you later.